Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Poddin, my Noggin. This week, we are joined by a special guest by the name of Duna Zurcher. Zurcher. Did I get that
Yes,
right? I got it
yes,
right the
very
first
well.
time, but I
Nurture.
didn't get it right that time. And Duna is a mindful health coach in the nutrition sector. I'm see, and I get a little nervous still to this day when I'm doing podcasting. And she specializes on emotional eating. So, welcome to the podcast, Dina. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to have this conversation. And I also get a little bit nervous too, so don't worry.
Well, I think nerves are good though, right? Like if there are nerves, then I think that means that you're probably like in the right place or excited about something.
Yes, I always
Um,
say that. Yeah. A little bit it's good, too much it depends. If it holds you back, then it's another story, but a little bit it's good.
Absolutely. So this is great. I love the area that you're focused and specialized in. And we want to hear about your story. So let's take us back to the beginning and talk about early years with Juna and how this sort of progressed over time.
Mhm. So, I actually had to reflect about this a lot when I started my training. And I remember when I was, I don't know, it was like 13 years old or something, I would go shopping with my friends and I could not find pants. So you can imagine at that time, in those early years when you go shopping and you can't find pants, you just feel that there's something wrong with you. You're not, um, you don't fit into the ideal standards that society puts, right? So that was the first thing that made me feel that there was something wrong with me. And then also, I always felt like drawn to comfort foods. Like I'm a sweet tooth, and I still am now, but now the story is different. But at that time, you know, fries, going to fast food places, or anything like the comfort foods, that was always what I liked. And I felt so bad about that because I could see my friends being, feeling neutral. If I have it, it's good. If I don't have it, it's good. And those were always my favorite foods, the ones that I wanted to eat. And I remember if I would get home and my mom had fish, for example, I'd be like, I would prefer fries, So I always had that bad relationship with food in the sense that I felt drawn to those comfort foods. And that made me feel very guilty and ashamed because I would compare myself to others, not only my body, but always also my food choices. Um, so I've always felt at war with my body and food because my food choices, if I had the opportunity to choose, it would always be the bad ones. And I say bad ones because now I don't believe there's good and bad foods. All foods serve a purpose. Some nourish your body and some nourish your mind and your soul. But it took me years to understand that.
So, back when you were younger, the messaging, I guess, was that fast food and fries, which is a personal favorite of my own. Um, so it was considered like poor food, bad food choices to eat this, and that's. Do you think that that's where that came from? Is like was there messaging at that time that you should be eating differently?
Well, I think that's a big message that society and the media brings, right? Like you should eat salad instead of fries and things like that. And I didn't know at the time, but I never really learned how to feel my emotions. I grew up in a house where there was a lot of drama, and when something would happen, we would never talk about it. So unconsciously, I learned that you don't express your emotions, and you just keep them to yourself because yeah, so something would happen and then the next day it's like nothing happened. So, and when you're a kid and you see like things like that, what you learn is like, okay, so this thing that I felt so overwhelmed about, so maybe angry, but I can't express it, because if now that everyone is pretending that nothing happened, I can't bring something up about that. So unconsciously, I learned that there are positive and negative emotions. And this is something also that nowadays I don't like labeling foods or emotions are as positive or negative, good or bad, because all emotions have a purpose as well, and all emotions have a message. And I do think also that society, it's not good to be angry. Well, if you're angry, your anger is there to tell you something. There's a boundary that has been um, gone over, and that's why you feel angry. Now you can't just explode in front of everyone and express anger in a way that can hurt other people, but it is very important that you do feel the anger and that you understand why you feel the anger. And I didn't learn that being a kid. That's something that I've learned years and years later.
So it's very interesting because I too had sort of similar experiences with like sort of upbringing, if
Mm-hmm.
you will, not um, feeling that I was able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Express my feelings surrounding
Mm-hmm.
things,
Yeah.
right? And for me, that sort of translated as I don't have a voice,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm voiceless or powerless. Um, and that was the faulty assumption
Mm-hmm.
that I gave myself that sort of created a lot of my teenage, young adult years, really up until I would say 35.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that. So as a child, yes, there would be events, but there would be no space to talk or reflect on said events.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody would just go back to being,
Yeah.
normal and as if it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, so you didn't have an outlet for your emotions.
Exactly.
And it sounds maybe that your outlet might have been comfort food.
Exactly. Exactly. So what I came to realize after is that, okay, you didn't learn how to feel your emotions. And then you had the messaging that there's good and bad foods, that your body is not acceptable because it doesn't fit the ideals. So you engage in diets, and diets don't work. And that's something that I also learned years and years later, because so you don't know how to express your emotions. We do know that food makes us feel better. There are chemical reactions and all that, that it does make us feel better. So if you can express your emotions and you know that food makes you feel better, what do? You go to that. And other people will go to drugs, alcohol, toxic relationships. In my case, and unfortunately a lot of people, that unhealthy relationship with food, with the lack of emotional expression, leads to emotional eating.
I love that because, yeah, and my wheels are turning. You're making my wheels turn, right? So I would categorize myself as having an unhealthy relationship with food.
Mm-hmm.
And I would categorize that because I think somewhere along the way, I became, or just was, very lazy when it came to food prep.
Mm-hmm.
And the easier options, like throw some chicken strips and french fries into an air fryer,
Mm-hmm.
would be like my go-to sort of
Sure.
thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fast food as well, even as an adult. I don't eat as much. I had a stark revelation 1 month, 2 years ago, when I was looking at my bank statements. And you know how they give insights now? And
Yes.
it told me you spent like $700 on Uber Eats in this month. And I was like, and I'm a
Oh.
single person who lives alone. So I'm like, that was a sort of a wake up call saying like, okay, that's a bit excessive.
Hmm.
We need to like dial this back and at least eat at home. So yeah, so it took, so you had these experiences when you were young. So like this is how it started. And then I'm assuming you were getting older in later teens. Like how did that evolution play out?
So it was really feeling at war with food and body. And then, okay, so if I can't control myself or I can't find pants that fit me, what do I have to do? I'm going to a dietitian.
Okay.
Restricting foods, and which I learned later, and it makes so much sense. So because you start a diet and you restrict all the foods that you like, and it creates a sense of deprivation. And you can think about it as a bow and arrow. The more you restrict, the more tension you build until at some point it's going to backlash, right? It's going to go. And what happens? Then you start eating because I don't know, maybe you had a bad day at work. I don't know, whatever it is, um, triggers that impulse, that urge to go to that food that you have been restricting and wanting so much because those foods get in a pedestal, right? So, and then you eat those foods and then different things happen. You overeat because you just can't stop, or because you are also thinking, okay, I am going to eat this now, but I'm going to go back on Monday or tomorrow. So you are anticipating that deprivation again. So you keep eating, keep eating, keep eating, right? And then I would always end up feeling guilty and ashamed. And why does this happen to me? Why I don't have any willpower? I don't have any discipline. And when you have all those emotions that are uncomfortable, not negative, they are uncomfortable, how do you deal with those emotions? By eating more. So you enter that cycle, and it's difficult to leave that cycle because it feeds itself, right? You go, you eat, you feel bad, so you feel powerless, and you eat again, and there you are, and you feel guilty and ashamed. Um and it's when I understood that all foods have a purpose, and also that diets don't work. I can very well remember I did a very, very strict diet where the sweetest thing I would eat were apples. And I wouldn't even eat any, the fruits or vegetables were very, very, very restricted too. And once a week, I would have the cheat meal. And that cheat meal, it's horrible to say that, because then you say, I'm being bad. I'm cheating. No, you're not being bad. Did you kill someone? No. There's not, you're not bad. And we also have that messaging, and I see that on Facebook and every day, oh, I've been bad. I've been bad. No, you have not been bad. You just ate something that you needed at that moment. What's important is to understand why. What made you eat that and feel out of control or what around that. And I think it's also very important to understand that we all eat emotionally from time to time. And it's just a part of being human. um, I don't know, you have a breakup and you eat the whole pint of ice cream. Who hasn't done that? And it's okay. The problem is when the food, it's your only coping mechanism, and it's followed by guilt, shame, and all that cycle over and over again. So
It's
what I was
just,
saying about the cheat meal, I remember one time I ate so much that I felt so sick. And at that time, I did not understand. I was just like, well, it's the cheat meal and I did a little bit too much and I feel very uncomfortable. But now I understand how the deprivation I was feeling, and how I was being so disciplined that I would eat every 3 hours. I would weigh all my food, and being hungry or not, I would have to eat. That all that deprivation, that's why I ate so much. And then I felt so miserable eating all that food.
yeah, it's like it's all a trap,
Yes.
right? The messaging for diet culture.
Yeah.
Um just there's so many different levels of messaging out there. This diet, that diet, keto,
Yes.
you know, it's never ending. And this is why it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, is
Exactly.
because people are so fixated on meeting the narrative that we've been sold to be a specific body size, type,
Hmm.
all of those things. And men don't openly talk about it,
Exactly. But
right?
it
But
it
they
happens.
experience
Yeah.
levels of this same process
Hmm.
because their messaging are, you know, unrealistic bodies and abs and muscles and all of these things on all of the men's magazines and the sports. So
Yes.
it's just, it's a lie. One interesting thing though that you keep saying, and I love, is that, you know, the relationship with food is neither good nor bad. Like, food is neither good nor bad.
Hmm.
Emotions are neither good nor bad. And I think what I'm seeing a little bit on sort of Instagram, I tend to steer away from Facebook for the most part, but on Instagram, I see a little bit more of that
Hmm.
coming out at
Yeah.
this point in our lives. And it's like people are realizing that, hold up,
Hmm.
I don't think this is the answer,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And there's one person I follow, I think his handle is Mike Needs a Plan. He lost a bunch of weight. You know, he's like ripped and all of those things, but he's trying to also debunk the
Hmm.
fact that you don't have to feel guilty about eating a chocolate bar or a snack or something
Hmm.
like that, because
Hmm.
like you know, if you want to lose weight, it's more about a calorie deficit than it is what you're eating technically, right? But back to you. So there was a catalyst somewhere. And
Hmm.
what was that catalyst that really sort of, was it the getting sick off of that cheat meal,
No,
or
no, it was years and years after. Um, I This is a bit of a long story, but so I'm half Spanish, half Swiss, and I went to on a backpacking trip to Southeast Asia, and it was a trip with no return ticket. However, after 2 months, I had a motorcycle accident that required my repatriation to Switzerland because I needed a knee surgery that I couldn't get in there. I needed a plate. Now I have a plate in my knee. So it was a complicated surgery. So I had to be repatriated. During those 2 months in that trip, I met someone. So with my repatriation, two things happened. One, my dream, which was backpacking trip, was over after 2 months. And two, I was meeting someone that I liked and we got separated. So emotionally, you can imagine that it was very, very hard. At the same time, I couldn't walk for 3 to 6 months and I was dependent on my dad and my stepmom, which for me was very difficult. I had been independent for a long time, and being there again, with my dad and all that was difficult. And then COVID happened. So one more layer. And then my dad got a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. So you can imagine that all those things together, um, food, food was there, and it was desserts every day, and it was going to the pantry without people knowing, and then my dad, we knew he would, he wouldn't, um, he wouldn't get cured. He still lived for 3 years, but it was a very difficult fight. So he looked at me and he said, if I look back at my life, I'm happy with the life I've had. And I was like, oh, I want to be able to say the same thing. And I realized that it's not that I was unhappy with the life I had, but I did realize that I hated my body. I could not look at the mirror. And as soon as I would lose weight, then I would be happy. But as soon as I would put on weight, I would be miserable again. And I felt drawn to those foods. And all those things imagining my whole life being at war with my body, which is my vehicle to live life. How can I, it's the only way that we can live life. It's the body that we have. So how can I be at war my whole life with it? How can I be at war like with food? And if I go to a social gathering, I'm more preoccupied about the food that's in there instead of being present with the people I am with. So realizing that I didn't want that in my life, and I wanted to look back and say, look at an amazing life I had, and that I was at peace with food and with my body. So that was the first thing that I was like, oh, okay, I need to do something about this. So I went to therapy as well because, with all these things that I mentioned, it was too much emotionally. And there I learned to feel my emotions, an emotion that I had expressed twice in my life. And at this point, I was 31 years old. Anger. I had never expressed it in my life. It doesn't mean that I never felt anger, because it's a normal, natural thing, right? So, and then I realized that I was not feeling my emotions. And then, well, my dad was doing all the chemo and all these things. And when I recovered, I came to the States to be with the boy I met in Asia. Now we're married. But the thing is that when we got married here, then I could not go back to Switzerland because of visa things. So deal with the fact that you abandoned your dad. That's how I felt at that moment. Now it's not like that. And my dad was the first person saying, you do not stay here for me. You need to keep going with your life. But, internally and subconsciously, you are really thinking, am I doing is right or not? Or, so, and then I did get, when he was in a very bad moment, I got a special permit to go see him. And I was able to be with him during his last month of life. But it was the worst month of my life. I'm very happy because of it, because I could be with my dad. But at the same time, you're seeing him decline, and die. And there, I had already done my coaching training. So I thought, I'm good with my relationship with food. But at that moment, I saw myself again. And then there is where I realized that emotional eating was my problem. There, I realized that. And then when I came back, I was like, okay, so now we need to work on this. And there is where I finally could truly heal my relationship with food and with my body. And then with myself as well, because I don't feel at war with my body. I don't feel at war with with food. And in all this process, you also learn, how to, that you're not your thoughts, that you're not your emotions, how you react to things. It's not only about food and body. There's so many things that you work on in the process that I saw that at the end of the day, I was also healing my relationship with myself, not being a people pleaser anymore, putting myself first, because if I can't give from an empty cup, all these things.
All the important stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's that stuff that helps you become the version of you that was always there, but behind lies and walls and all of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that sounds like a very sort of roller coaster few years there towards the end of your dad's life.
Mm-hmm.
I am happy that you were able to get to spend
Thank
that
you.
last month. I think that is something just wonderful for both
Yes.
of you.
Yes.
And that you recognize that intense sort of sadness, that intense sort of experience with watching your father's health decline contributed to triggering you to get back into eating foods.
Yes.
the way you were. So you did therapy and you healed your relationship with your body.
Mm-hmm.
You healed your relationship with food. So what does that look like now?
So now it looks like I, for example, with my body, I understood something that I wish this was taught more, and it's um, first the awareness of your body is your vehicle to live life, so it deserves the respect
Mm-hmm.
and deserves to be taken care of, right? And also about the constant worry about weight and all that, there's this thing called the set weight point that we all have, meaning that it is in our DNA how our body size and shape is, right? So the same thing that you wouldn't try to change your shoe size, we are trying to change our body. And all the things that we are doing to try to change our body actually just hurt further and further your relationship with your body and with food, because you engage in diets and you're trying to modify your body, and your body suffers from it, right? So
What
I
is that weight called?
the set weight point.
Set as an SET?
Yes.
Set
Yes.
weight point.
Mm-hmm.
And how would someone determine what their set weight point would be?
What I came to understand in my case is that when you are able to heal your relationship with food, which for me means I eat all kinds of foods, but I don't have this feeling of deprivation. So I am not always like, oh my God, I want fries. Oh my God, I wasn't this. I have a diet where, I mean, diet, not as following a diet, so, but the
Mm,
way I eat. I eat a lot of fruit less because I'm thinking that it's making me bloated. I'm trying to understand something there, but I eat a lot of vegetables. I try to eat good protein, fats, but I eat ice cream. I eat dark chocolate almost every day because I love it, and it's not a little bit of chocolate that's going to ruin my health, right? And so when you are able to heal your relationship with food and to find a balance that works for you, your weight goes into place. That's what I've seen. I haven't weighed myself in like 2 years now, and I haven't been up and down, up and down, up and down, because my way of eating, it it the way I eat just is my natural way of eating. Is It's not there's not a deprivation and overeating. It's really the way that works for me. And the thing is that diets don't work. If they worked, we will all be, eating perfectly. So everyone needs to understand what works for them. But that's scary. That's very
It
scary.
it it is scary. Um, how often do you have fries now?
Well, yesterday I had fries, and the day before I had fries too,
Oh,
and it's okay.
so and
But
so it's not
I
about
might not have
restriction.
fries for 2 or 3 weeks. I just
Fair.
felt like having them. So I listened to my body, because what happens as well with this, all the dieting things, like you track your food, you count your calories, you weigh your food, you're not listening to your body, and it disconnects you from your body. And I came to a point where I didn't even remember how my body was telling me it's time to eat, it's time to stop. So there's all this process where you need um to to really tune in into your body again. And that's why I developed a framework that I call the self-rediscovery journey. Why? Because when you don't feel your emotions and you engage in dieting and all that, you end up by being disconnected from your body. So I think that it's very important to come back into your body, to really tune in. What do I need? How do I feel? and I eat this food. How does that food makes me feel? I eat this other food. How does it feel now in 2 hours? So there's a lot of, it's work. It's work. You really need to be patient and be mindful, but it's so worth it, because now I might eat ice cream and there's no guilt at all. I just eat it, enjoy it, and move on. But I don't eat ice cream every day because I don't feel like having ice cream every day.
So you're engaged in listening to what your body is asking for.
Exactly.
And as opposed to saying, if you have an anchoring for French fries and Oreos, I don't know, something random, but like, it's not a matter of saying, no, you shouldn't have that. It's a matter of, okay, you can have that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
that simple.
It's
And
that simple, but it's also like, let's say that you have an urge to go eat Oreos.
okay,
So first thing that I do is like, am I physically hungry or not? Because there's physical hunger and there's emotional hunger. There's other hungers too, but let's focus on those two.
okay,
You need to learn first, how does your body show physical hunger? So you need first to tune in all that, right? And if we think about general things, when you're physically hungry, the hunger comes little by little. A lot of foods feel good to have. When you eat, you feel satisfied and you stop when you're full. Now, or maybe your stomach is growling, or or maybe you're moody. I know that if I don't eat, I get headache. So if I get a headache, I'm like, oh, I should have eaten before, So, but that's my personal experience. For you, it might be something else.
I
Now,
get
if we think
hangry.
about, you get hangry, exactly. Yeah, but that's awareness is power, and without awareness, there's nothing you can do, right?
Absolutely.
I always say that awareness is the first step. So, and now let's think about emotional hunger. It comes quickly. Something triggers it and it comes quickly, and it needs to be satisfied on the spot. And it's not, oh, I could have a salad. I want Oreos, right? And then you eat and you eat. And even when you're full, you don't feel satisfied. So there is an emotion that you're trying to bury or deal with that food. So now if I feel like, oh, I want Oreos, well, am I physically hungry? Yes. Okay. Is it really Oreos that I want? Is that going to keep me full or not? Maybe I will have 2 Oreos and some nuts, because then I have more, I have fat, I have carbs, and, to try to make it a little bit more a better meal, let's say. If I'm not physically hungry, okay, how do I feel? What do I feel? Am I bored, sad? Am I trying to distract myself? Wherever it can be. And then before I eat those Oreos, I'm going to take 10 to 15 minutes to do something else. And I have this is something that I have an emotional eating journaling guide that your audience can also download at mindfulhealthwithduna.com/emotional eating journal. So, and that is to help you learn to feel better without food and have new coping mechanisms. So I have a little, let's say, emotional toolkit. So if I feel that I am emotionally hungry, and then I'm going to be like, okay, I feel sad. So what could I do instead of eating food? I might call a friend. I might first I feel the feeling. I try to understand what's going on. And then, okay, I might call a friend. I might I love when I've really noticed that if I'm down, if I put happy music, that lifts me up. That happens to me. Maybe other people know. So I try to do something else, or going for a walk. Journaling. Journaling is amazing, because when things are in your head and you overthink, our brain tends to go to the worst case scenario. That's how we are wired because of how it was millions of years ago. Nowadays, that doesn't help as much, but it is what it is. So writing down things really helps to, get more clarity and get things out of your mind. So I will look another thing to do. And after those 10, 15 minutes, I check in again. Do I still want those Oreos? Maybe the answer is no, but maybe it's yes, and that's okay. Before, I would have eaten the Oreos first thing, and now I did something else before. And that is very important because I've tried something else. And if I decide that I am going to eat the Oreos, I'm going to grab, I don't know, 2, 3, I don't know. And I'm going to be completely present in the eating experience. I'm not going to be eating them while watching TV because my brain will not process the same way that I've been eating that. I'm not going to feel satisfied the same way. So I'll eat and really enjoy that Oreo and feeling the taste, the texture, the smell, engaging my senses instead of having a distraction.
Love this. So, I mean, to summarize, you had mentioned this earlier. It is a lot of work.
Yes.
To heal your relationship with your body and then heal your relationship with food. Mm-hmm. It's work. It's therapy though. And like, so you were talking about writing things down, and I don't know, I have a memory like a goldfish. So I will have things to ask or bring up, and then I don't want to interrupt, my guest. Mm-hmm. And so I'll just keep them there, but then it comes back around and I go to ask because I feel like it's still fresh there. But then when I go to ask, it's blank space. And I'm like, okay, so
I understand.
So it sounds to me like there's got to be a level of reprogramming mm-hmm. for every person, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm an emotional eater. I know this. There's certain things that you were talking about just now that I was like, yes, okay, well, no, I do this. I will have urges for salt and vinegar chips, mm-hmm. right? Which I think is in the US. I think it's ketchup that you don't have in the US. But salt and vinegar chips, guilty pleasure. And I'll just go and have them. Mm-hmm. Or what happens is now I try to keep minimal junk food in my house because it either causes me to have to leave my house to get it, and I'm a bit of a hermit in the winter, or Uber it or something like that. And that mm-hmm. process creates a barrier point that I have to stop and sort of slow down and go find what it is that I'm having a craving for mm-hmm. and order it. So, but it doesn't always work. But yeah, so reprogramming, first of all, if somebody believes that they're not happy with their body or with their size or the shape, right? Because mm-hmm. bodies come in so many different variables. It's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. So there's that reprogramming process to like undo the years of like subliminal messaging and just overall messaging. Mm-hmm. So, but then I think the key point after that, like when you do start doing that work, is to become aware of mm-hmm. yourself and of your body, but in two ways. In the physical sort of context, like what is your body telling you physically? Mm-hmm. And then what is your, say, body and mind telling you mentally?
Exactly.
And do the two match up, or are they completely out of, mm-hmm. With each other? What I really like about what you just said, though, is the observation of going and just eating, but saying, what is this feeling that I'm feeling mm-hmm. when it comes to food, right? Like, so if I want, what is the feeling that I'm having? And is it boredom? I think for me, a lot of times it's boredom based. Yeah. Like I want something to indulge in because I'm like, that sort of thing. But I don't think I thought of it in that sense before, where I would say not necessarily stop, because we don't want to say tell somebody don't have the salt and vinegar chips or the Oreos, but pause
Hmm.
is maybe the best term to say. Ask yourself, like, what is your body telling you? Are you hungry? And
Yes.
I love the part about, okay, well, Oreos actually fuel my body, because that also sounds to be a bit about in line with your messaging is eat for fuel, right?
It's eat for fuel, but fuel your body, but also mind and soul. So it's you need your veggies and all that, but um but I mean, ice cream, it's not gonna give me all the energy I need for the whole day, right?
No, no.
So I know that in my meals, for example, my main meals, I'll eat my carbs and protein and fats and all that. And so if what I want is to have energy for the day, I'm not gonna eat a croissant or something like that, because I know it's gonna, after an hour, I'm gonna feel hungry again. I
Yes.
know that for a fact, but because I've done the work, because I've written down, okay, I ate this for breakfast. When do I feel hungry again? And it's learning what works for you. And my breakfast, for example, in general, it's eggs and bread. And before bread, I would be like, no, I can't eat bread. Well, if I don't eat bread, after an hour, I'm hungry, and I don't want to be eating every hour, you know.
So
And
it's the mixture of the multiple, like, carbs, protein,
mhm,
fats
yeah.
that sort of create the sustainability of energy throughout the
Hmm.
day.
Exactly. And carbs are demonized, right?
Oh my gosh, yes, yeah.
However, we do need carbs. And I remember at some point that I was doing that diet I was mentioning earlier. It was only protein at night, only protein. I would be so hungry just half an hour after eating an egg or something like that. I would be so hungry that I end up eating the protein shake. I would make like a paste with it, and I would eat so much that I end up having other health problems because I was binging on that. And I was like, well, this is healthy because it's protein, it's a protein shake. No, that has other effects, and my liver suffered from it a lot. So instead of having done that, if I had put some veggies or half potato or wherever, I would have, it would have been better for my health, actually, you know?
Balancing it out.
Hmm.
And then I think going back to what is this feeling is such a powerful sort of
Hmm.
pause to take.
Yes.
Knowing yourself well enough to say, okay, well, actually, I think right now I feel sad, or
Yes.
maybe I feel anxious. Um, and then, okay, I have this feeling, but then serving the feeling in an alternate way first. So if
Exactly.
you feel sad, talking to your family, like you said, or if you feel anxious, doing a grounding exercise to see if you
Totally.
can feel a
Hmm.
little bit calmer first.
Yes.
And then the part that all these little steps are really sort of like ringing out for me, because then it's like you've done that, right? So that initial impulse is gone to
Hmm.
have salt and vinegar chips or Oreos. Um, but then you ask yourself, after you've identified the feeling, you've done something to feed or fuel that feeling, not with food, but
Hmm.
another task.
Hmm.
And then you're asking yourself, do you still desire the
Hmm.
Oreos?
Yeah.
And if you do, it's okay.
Yes.
But what I love the most, and we're going to talk about this right now, is the mindful eating,
Hmm.
right? And we very few people. It takes practice to be
Oh, yeah.
mindful in doing
Yes.
anything in life. But I
Hmm.
mean, eating is one of those things that comes almost as natural as breathing. So, like, we have to eat to live.
Exactly.
So we're not really conscious from, say, fork to mouth, and
Hmm.
then post fork in mouth of what's happening, how, say, a lettuce is crispy and the salad dressing is sort of
Mm-hmm.
tingling on your tongue,
Yeah.
or that sort of feeling of warmth when the vinaigrette goes down your throat, like those particular things. That's mindfulness, because you're being so present
Exactly.
with what's happening to your body.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that important? I mean, I know why that's important, but I want to know, I want to hear you explain why that's important to people who are watching and listening.
Well, we have a tendency to eat distracted with TV, scrolling on our phones, and all that. What happens when we are doing those things? You're scrolling on your phone and you're putting food in your mouth. You're not really present in the eating experience. You don't connect with your body to know when you're full, when when if you're still hungry. And I've seen it in my life. One time I was hungry, I took a snack and I took it while while watching something. 15 minutes later, I went and grabbed the same snack and I was like, wait a second, I already ate this. I was so distracted that I felt that my brain didn't really register that I had eaten. And I never felt if I was full or not or satisfied. So I think that when you start mindful eating, it's very important to all distractions. And this is so difficult because we are so used to having those distractions that it feels boring to eat without those distractions. And a lot of people is like, okay, so what do I do then? You eat. You're present in the eating experience. You're really what I also say to do, and I try to do as much as I can. I'm not going to say that I'm perfect and then do it every time, but before eating, take a couple of deep breaths to come back so that your mind that is, oh, I need to do this and I need to do that, and come back. Now it's moment to eat. Bring your mind here. Say thank you for what you have on your plate. Thank you for the farmers. Thank you for the people that transported the food. Thank you for how the food got into your plate. Thank yourself for cooking that food. And then really look, smell. Food is joy. Food is joy. So let's live and bring that joy when we eat. And when you are present in your eating experience and you feel all the taste and the smell and all that, your brain has more time to register. You slow down. I think this is also very important. I used to eat very fast. So now what I really try to do is I put in my mouth, and I put down my cutlery, because otherwise I'm already ready for the next one. And that's just shoving my food into my mouth. So I try to put my cutlery down so that I can, the eating experience I try that the meal, it's at least 15 to 20 minutes, because otherwise I would eat in 5 to 10. And then I feel full, but after half an hour, I feel that I need to eat again. But when you are present in your eating experience, when you engage your senses, and when you slow down, then you can tune in the middle of the meal. Am I still hungry? Yes. No? Yes. Okay, I can keep going. Am I still hungry? Yes. No. Oh no, I'm full. Okay, I can leave it. And this is another problem. A lot of people think, oh, I need to empty my plate. You do not need to empty your plate. And I understand that a lot of people is like, oh, there's a lot of kids that need food and all that. I totally understand that. However, if you are putting food inside your body when you are not hungry and you don't need that food anymore, you're treating your body like garbage. Kinda. Because you are not needing it anymore. You are full. So why are you forcing yourself to eat more? The fact that you are eating those foods, you are not helping those kids that way. What you can do is maybe serve less and then repeat and put more if you want, if you're still hungry. There's other ways instead of just forcing yourself to have that plate empty and forcing yourself if you're already full.
So for me, Two things. I'm hoping I didn't write them down, so I'm hoping I remember them. So two things, yes. Like I can definitely identify moments in my life where I have eaten mindfully, in the sense that I'm more aware of the food that I'm eating. I'm slow, I'm savoring, I'm experiencing the food. Whereas, if I'm watching a movie that I find really engaging, I could sit down with the intention, and I'm air quoting, but with the intention of having a few salt and vinegar chips from one of those big bags, and then just eating until I'm
Mhm.
empty. The bag
Yeah.
is empty.
Hmm.
And so, like, I've cleaned off an entire bag of chips
Hmm.
thoughtlessly,
Yeah.
really. And then when you just mentioned as well, like people have hangups about finishing their plate. I was raised, and a lot of people were raised
Yes.
to, like, this was a requirement that you
Yes.
had to finish what was on your plate. And
Hmm.
then, secondly, the children being hungry, that is something that, for me, and I know a lot of people, this is something we were taught since childhood,
Hmm.
right?
Totally.
But I like the fact that you're saying, and it's true, and to be cognizant of, that finishing that food and adding more food when you're already full does nothing to help those children,
Hmm.
right? And
Exactly.
your alternative, one thing I'm really enjoying about you, Duna, is that you seem to have a lot of tips in how to circumvent some of
Hmm.
the known sort of issues that we have, right? So, like, serve less, then check in. If you're still hungry, have more. So you're
Hmm.
not wasting, right? So, quickly, let's talk. We talked about um, you have a on your website, which is Mindful Health with Duna. I'm going to link it in the descriptions so that people can find and get access to this really easily. If you access through like a web browser on your computer, it's in the bottom right hand side. It's called a free emotional eating journaling guide. It's understand what triggers and habits make you feel drawn to your comfort foods. Juna mentioned this earlier in our conversation, and I myself might actually download this and sort of start working, because I think I could benefit from some mindful eating, and maybe working on addressing some of my unhealthy habits with food.
Hmm.
Um, I've done really well this year with exercise and things like that, but I'm less mindful with food. Also, if you are at home and watching or listening, you can follow Gina on Instagram, and her handle, which I'll also post, is mindful underscore health underscore with underscore Duna, and that's Duna. And she has lots of cute, very colorful posts on there that are just food positive, really. Like, in a sense, no, and I don't want to say positive because there's no good or bad food, right?
Hmm.
But positive in the sense, like, you can have those foods at home without losing control. Like,
Yes.
that's one thing,
Hmm.
I just saw. And then there's another one: you can feel good without food.
Yes.
Not saying that don't eat. What I think the messaging there is that you
Hmm.
don't need food to be complete in
Exactly.
the sense with your moods. Um, I I think it's great. I think you are definitely doing good work. Now, my question for you is if somebody wanted to work with you, how would they go about doing that?
So I have a one-on-one coaching program. It's a 12-week program where at the beginning first we do a discovery call, which is a completely free consultation, and it doesn't mean that we need to work together, but in there it's for me to understand where the person is at that moment and where they want to be at. And then if they decide to work with me, I have this 12-week program where at the beginning it's more a foundation, because I really think that it's important to first understand what is it that you want, the why, because when you know the why you want the things you want, then it's much easier to take action towards those things, as well as your values and passions. Because if your values are to enjoy time with your family, but dieting is getting in the way, well, then you're not aligned with your values, right? So I think in those first 2-3 first sessions, we do a lot of work on what I call foundations, and it's really getting the why, getting your vision of your future, limiting beliefs that we all have. And it's very important to tackle those limiting beliefs because those hold us back. And then looking at values and passions. And from there, we work on healing the relationship with food, but that this is very tailored to each person, because some people have some issues, other people have other issues, so it's really tailored. And that's why we have the discovery call and those foundations, to really put those foundations and then work from there up. So, they can DM me on Instagram or on my website. They also can book that free discovery call.
Yes. I see work with me there as an option. I love the coloring. It looks,
Purple is my color.
yeah, I know. I like it. I like the coloring. I like the aesthetics of your website and the aesthetics of your Instagram. So they kind
Thank
of
you.
go together really well. This has been a very insightful conversation today, Duna, and I
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
your knowledge so much. For anybody at home who struggles with emotional eating, or just an unhealthy relationship with food, or maybe you've tried a bunch of diets and you don't understand why none of them work, book a call with Duna, have that conversation, see if you're a good fit for each other, and then you never know where you can go from there. So that's our time this week. But once again, Duna, thank you so much for coming on Poddin My Noggin. And for everybody at home, tune in again next week and go out there and live your wildest dreams. Until then.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.